great about that, other than trying to help people who are in a state of invasion. Welcome back to the Immigration Answer Show. Back-to-back episodes. I'm going to go 2 hours and 1 minute just to beat our old record. How do you like me now? This is the 494th episode of the Immigration Answer Show. We'll be here for one more hour. We just did an hour. That was fun. We had quite a call for our Nigerian friend, Smiling Lion. I'm going to redo a presentation that Amani and I gave last night at the Northwest Islamic Center. I slightly modified it. That presentation was the 11 things every Muslim needs to know about immigration, and I just changed it, and I changed a couple of the slides to 11 things every immigrant needs to know about immigration. So I'm going to do that. That'll probably take me about a half hour, I think, and then we'll take any questions or go to the calls. Huli, if you could keep track, if you see any good questions that pop up, maybe you can put them on the screen for me, and then I'll try to answer them. Not too many, but every now and then, maybe. We'll be here for the full hour, and then tomorrow I'll do a show probably at noon. But if you want to make sure, text the word show to 314-470-3300, and we'll text out the start time tomorrow once we know that. 314-470-3300. Get on our texting list by texting that word show to that number. Thanks for all the great comments. Let us know again where you are watching from. I just saw one of my favorite pictures of all time. So back in the 80s, when I was a kid, you know, when you would do those grade school shots, there were always sort of funny things. There was sometimes people were going like this, like 12-year-old kids would go like this, or there'd be the picture of them, and then their profile would be up here in the corner going the other way. It looked so weird. But the best thing of all about pictures in the 80s was when they substituted in lasers for the background of the pictures. So last year, when Nora was in 8th grade, or maybe 7th grade, a couple years ago, I begged her to do a picture with lasers background. And ladies and gentlemen, here it is, our director of TikTok with lasers. Lasers, yes. And it's sort of great because her dress is sort of checkered and we got lasers, right? So I think we need to get more pictures of people with lasers or that weird profile that they had. All right, so I'm going to pull up my slides and get going with the show. Let us know. Am I this serious 24/7? I don't know. Do you guys think I'm serious? I think I'm silly. I think mostly I'm like a silly person. I don't think of myself as a serious. Huli, do you think I'm a serious person? I don't think so. I like to have fun. Oh, Roy B's here. All right. Yeah, sometimes I'm serious. Sometimes I get mad, and that's what people really like. That's like the highlight of the show. We should get all the clips together of when I was mad. People really like that. And I know we're going to have to replay the first time Shabazz came on the show just because it's so freaking hilarious. All right, here we go with the slides. So these are the 11 things that every immigrant needs to know about immigration. Now, longtime listeners to the show will say to themselves, man, I've heard all this stuff at various times. These are a lot of the things that Jim says over and over, but I really want to make sure that I understand it. And I think by putting it all in a concise, compact way, you'll sort of see how immigration sort of fits together. And more importantly, you'll understand my philosophy of immigration as a blood sport. That's the thing about immigration. You either win or you lose. There's no ties. You know, like when somebody gets in a car accident and somebody says, ooh, you hurt my back and I'm going to sue you. They might say, I need $100,000 to make myself whole. And the insurance company might say, yeah, we're going to give you $5,000. And they go back and forth, and most cases settle, right? Well, in immigration, you can't really settle. Sometimes we settle our lawsuits, but for the most part, you can't really settle. Hey, our buddy Michael's here. Happy Hanukkah, Michael. And to all others who celebrate, happy Hanukkah. I think today is day 2 of Hanukkah. And let us all pray for a little bit of peace and a little bit of love around the world as our Jewish brothers and sisters begin to celebrate Hanukkah. All right, the 11 things every immigrant needs to know about immigration. Number 1, you are 100% responsible for keeping your immigration history clean. You are 100% responsible for keeping your immigration history clean. You only have one immigration history. You only have one little book with all of your good deeds and your bad deeds. Think about Santa with his list of the naughty boys and the naughty girls and the good boys and the good girls. That's how it is at immigration, right? So once you get a black mark on your immigration history, it makes it very hard for you to get future benefits, right? So always be thinking, as soon as I mess up my record, I might not be able to ever fix it. Now, some things you can't ever come back from. A fake asylum claim, a fake marriage claim. I had somebody tell me this week that he told the immigration officer that his first marriage was fake, that he paid someone at the temple $2,500 to arrange his marriage to a person who was not someone that he loved or cared about. He admitted that at USCIS. Do you think I can stay? No. Once you get those black marks, certain black marks you can't ever come back from. So if you guys watch this show a lot, you know how we hear, like I almost always start back with, tell me about how you entered. I'm always going to want to know, what did you tell the immigration officer or the consular official? What did you tell CBP? Because you only have one immigration history and it's your responsibility. No one is going to care as much as you about your immigration history, right? And there's a lot of notarios and lawyers who don't really care about you. Only you can keep your record clean. So make sure that you do. Number 2, you need to understand the U.S. immigration system. So we're going to go through the basics of the U.S. immigration system. I hope you guys find this helpful. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So this is a professor. He's up at St. Thomas University in Minnesota. And I used to talk about the ladder, like you wanted to move up the ladder of immigration. Well, Professor Wiebe likens the United States to a big hotel, right? The big hotel. And he says there's different levels of the hotel. So the very lowest level he calls the dungeon, and that's immigration detention. That's people who are being held by CBP or ICE and not being let into the United States or not being allowed to get out of immigration detention. They're waiting to be deported or to see if they're allowed into the United States. So he calls that the dungeon. In the basement, we have people who are in unauthorized status. So this would be people who entered the United States without inspection or came on a visa and never went home. So there are an estimated 10 to 15 million people in the United States without valid legal status. They're walking around us all the time. They might look like regular people, U.S. citizens to you and me, but in fact, they are here with unauthorized status. About 2/3 of them would have done what's called entered without inspection. And that's the legal term. That's the proper term to be used for people who come across the border and are not inspected. That is, they didn't get inspected by a CBP official. The United States didn't know that they were coming. And so they are here without status. We do not call people illegal aliens. If you shoot your mother, if you sell drugs, you are not called an illegal criminal. You are just a criminal. If you break the United States immigration laws, you are not illegal. No human being is illegal. No human being is illegal, no matter how you entered. Even if you committed the worst heinous crime, I wouldn't call you illegal. So I'm sure as heck not going to call people who have violated the civil statutes when it comes to immigration as illegals. The other 1/3 of people who are here with unauthorized status, and that's millions and millions of people who had a visa and did not go home on time. So that's people in the basement. In the lobby, these are people that are sort of physically here, but they're waiting for some place to go. They may have been admitted into the United States or paroled in, or they might have been given what's called deferred action, which means they're here. We could kick them out, but we're deferring. We're waiting to take action on them. So all the people on DACA would be falling into there. All the people on TPS, all the people who are seeking asylum would be in a potential position of having this deferred action being in the lobby that Professor Wiebe says. Then we have all the people on non-immigrant visas. So these are people we hear about all the time on this show. So those are people who enter on a visit visa, who come as a student, either an F1 or a J1, come on an E2 work visa, or even on an H1B. These are people who aren't on a path to getting a green card and will be here for a certain period of time and are promising to go back home. They might later try to change their status and get a green card to adjust their status from non-immigrant to immigrant. And we're going to talk about the distinctions there in a little bit. But for the most part, people on an NIV, on a non-immigrant visa, they're planning eventually to go home. Next floor, Professor Wiebe calls the sanctuary, the floor of refuge. The floor of refuge is sort of two types of people. The first type of people are refugees. So refugees are people who are outside the United States. They're in a place where there's been a war and conflict, and it is not safe for them to go back to their country or to stay in their country. And so they go through the United Nations and they apply for a refugee status. AJ calls this Hotel California. That's pretty good. Pretty good, AJ. I like that. So the floor of refuge, refugees, these are people who've gone through a very long process, 3 or 4 or 5 years. They've convinced the United Nations that it's not safe for them to stay where they are, and they've asked to be given refuge. The United States takes refugees. Certain countries in Europe take refugees. Canada takes refugees. And so refugees are people who come to the United States through the United Nations. The other form of refuge that people have in the United States is for people who, and H&M, if you guys send me an email, info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com, I'm happy to send these slides to whoever wants them, info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. And we have that on the last slide, but you can always email me and ask me for these slides. I'm happy to share them with whoever wants them. Asylum, and we're going to talk a lot about asylum. So I'm just going to real quickly say those are people who fear persecution in their home country, and they're already here in the United States. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about asylum. Lawful permanent residency. So this is one floor or one step below citizenship. And you have to be a lawful permanent resident for a certain period of time before you can become a citizen. Now, if you become a lawful permanent resident, you can stay in that status for the rest of your life. You don't have to become a U.S. citizen. You should, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, but you don't have to. You could be a lawful permanent resident. One time I had a great client. I'd helped him get an employment-based green card. I liked him a ton. He was from England, and he hired me to file for his citizenship. And unlike many of my clients, he read every single page of the N-400. And at the end, the page said that he was going to have to give up his allegiance to bloody old England and become a U.S. citizen. And on the day for him to come in and sign the form and pay the filing fee, he looked at me very sadly and he said, "Jim, I can't go through with this. I can't go through with this because I can't give up my allegiance to the Queen." This is when the Queen was still alive. "I just can't bring myself to do it. I will have to remain a lawful permanent resident and not become a U.S. citizen." Now, for the most part, most people who get their residency want to become citizens. So if you become a lawful permanent resident, and we're going to talk about the 4 main ways that you can become a lawful permanent resident, that once you do that, if you wait 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. And of course, you can apply 3 months early. So 4 years and 9 months after the start date on your green card, you can apply for citizenship. If you are married to a U.S. citizen for 3 years, then you can apply on the 3-year rule. Now you have to reprove the marriage. And we talk a lot about that on this show, about how not everybody should apply under the 3-year rule just because they can. All right. So that is how you get to citizenship. So citizens can vote in the United States. They can hold elected office. They have greater priority in who they can sponsor to come to the United States. And they have what are called immediate relatives. We're going to talk about that too. So citizenship is sort of the gold standard. For the most part, if you get your citizenship, they can't deport you unless you lied during the naturalization process. All right. So here are the 4 ways to get your green card. One thing to keep in mind, you can't just get a green card by staying in the United States. Just because you're staying in the United States doesn't mean you get to get a green card. If you have 5 years, 7 years, 10 years in non-immigrant status, that doesn't get you anything towards a green card. The 4 main ways to get your green card are the diversity visa, which we talk a lot about on here, asylum, which we also talk a lot about on here, family-based immigrant visas, and employment. So we're going to talk about each of those sort of at a high level, not as much as we do in all the time. When I do a real presentation, a face-to-face presentation, if it's for students, I spend more time talking about employment because that's what they're interested in. I'm trying to keep this at a high level. And we're still on number 2. The diversity visa program, there's 50,000 green cards set aside for people for underrepresented countries. So if you have a high school degree or a job that requires 2 years of work experience and you're from an eligible country, you can apply for a green card or an immigrant visa through the diversity visa lottery. If you're in the United States, you have to be in status and you have to get the whole process. Either way, you have to get the whole process done by the end of the fiscal year. So here's how it works. The period just closed a little while ago. So from October like 5th or 6th until November 5th or 6th every year, everybody can apply for the diversity visa. You do it on the US government website. You don't do it, you don't have to pay for it as like a $35 fee or something. It's very cheap. And you and your spouse can both apply if you want. If one of you get picked, then you're one of the 50,000. So usually about 1 million people apply for those 50,000 slots. And that sounds like really bad odds. But our office is handling 2 DV cases right now. We handle them every year. So if we're handling them, I can tell you that it actually is something that works, right? So you apply between October, most of October and early November. And then next May, people will find out if they've been selected, right? So they'll be, when you find out that you've been accepted, you'll be given a line number. Your line number might be 3. It might be 1010. It might be 4010. It might be 8010. And then what you have to do is every month you have to go to the visa bulletin and check to see if your number became current. Once your number becomes current, so if you have number 3, then when the fiscal year starts in October, if you're in the United States, you would apply for a green card. If you're overseas, you would apply for an immigrant visa through the National Visa Center. And then you just have to process and get everything taken care of by the end of the fiscal year. If you don't get it taken care of by the end of the fiscal year, it's as if you were never selected. Now, not every country can participate in the diversity visa. So if you are from a country where a lot of people have entered the United States and gotten immigrant visas over the last 5 years, then you most likely won't be able to participate in the diversity visa, because they take the top 20 countries and people from those countries can't participate in the diversity visa. So here are the countries that aren't eligible or that weren't eligible, and these pretty much don't change. My friend Lewis pointed out to us this year that the United Kingdom came off this list, but generally, if you're from Bangladesh, Brazil, Canada, China, Colombia, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, India, Jamaica, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Philippines, South Korea, Venezuela, or Vietnam, then you can't participate in the diversity visa. If you have family members who drive you crazy, or family members who are always like, when are you going to help me get to the United States? You should tell them to apply for the diversity visa every October and to see if they got selected, right? All right, so one person asked, what happens, where is that? What happens if I misspelled my name on my DV application and I got selected? If it's just a very basic misspelling, it most likely won't matter. You can clean that up later. So that's diversity visa. That's the first way that people get their green cards. The second is asylum. So this is for people who are in the United States and fear being persecuted if they return back home. Fear being persecuted if they go back home. And persecution isn't that people are going to be mean to me or it'll be hard for me to find a job. Persecution is they're going to hang me up by my toes and torture me. They're going to lock me up in jail for long periods of time. They're going to beat me with a stick. These are asylum cases. These are valid. This is actual persecution. The best way to show the threat of future persecution is by demonstrating that in the past, you've been persecuted back in your home country. And whenever people talk to us about asylum, we always say, who's going to persecute you? Who's going to persecute you? And then the next question is, why are they going to persecute you? Next question is, will the government stop those people from persecuting you? Or was it the government that was going to persecute you or that is going to persecute you? Another question I like to ask a lot is, if I dropped you off in the middle of your country right now, what would happen? Right? What would happen? Right? So that's a good way to think about asylum. And it can't just be for any old reason. It has to be one of 5 reasons. One of 5 reasons. You have to show that you have a well-founded fear, a believable fear of being persecution if you get sent back home because of your race, your religion, your nationality, your political opinion, or your membership in a particular social group. So membership in a particular social group, that's sort of a catch-all. So like if you are gay and you're from Saudi Arabia and you fear going back home because they're going to do something bad to you, or in Pakistan or Afghanistan, then you would be in a particular social group of homosexual men or women from those countries who aren't being protected by the government or being persecuted by the government, right? All right. So that is asylum, and that's a particular social group. You almost always want to file your asylum claim within 1 year of arrival. 1 year of arrival. You don't want to let too much time go by before applying for asylum. If you do it more than a year, you're most likely going to be not able to make your asylum claim. They can change, they can look around it, but you can't count on that. So you almost always want to file within 1 year unless something has happened. So let's say you've been here on a student visa for 3 years, and then there's a government overthrow of your government back in your home country, and your dad was like the vice president, and now he's in jail. That would be a change of circumstances that would allow people to file a late asylum claim. Sorry, I was getting distracted by Chum's question. Can DACA recipients apply for DV? Most likely no, because in order to get the diversity visa green card, you have to be in status at the time you apply and all the way through to when you get your green card. And DACA recipients don't have actual status. They're just not being deported. They're in that group of the lobby that we talked about, people that could be deported but just aren't being deported. And we talked about how asylum is different than a refugee process. You can apply for your green card 1 year after you get your asylum. If you have a spouse or children, they can also be included in there. You can apply for work authorization after your application has been pending for a while. And we talked about that. Yeah, so asylum. All right. So you might recall that 2 weeks ago or a week ago, we talked about how the Brooklyn Law School did an amazing analysis of the New York Asylum Office. The approval rate for asylum applications at the New York Asylum Office is 5%. 5%. And this report goes into great detail about how the officers are taught to look for little inconsistencies, little problems with your case, to call you a liar so they can just quickly deny it, because it's actually more work to approve an asylum case than to deny it. It's almost criminal, I think. I think people really should get fired in that office. But of course, Joe Biden doesn't care about immigration, so nothing's really going to happen. But asylum just generally is tough. About a third of the cases are approved. Now, if you apply for asylum, you're supposed to get to see an asylum officer. And once you do, they're supposed to just ask you questions and find out about your case. They're not supposed to be looking to screw you. They're not supposed to be looking to try to deny your case. They're supposed to be giving you a fair chance. If you don't get awarded asylum, you don't get to appeal. You get put into removal if you're out of status, and then you can raise asylum as a defense to deportation, right? A defense to deportation. So a lot of it depends which officer you get, which field office you're in, or which asylum office you're in, rather, and which judge you get. And like I said before, if you file a fake asylum claim, you're never going to get it approved, but you're never going to get any immigration benefit for the rest of your life. Third way people get green cards and get to stay in the United States are immigrant visas. Now, spouses, parents, and children of U.S. citizens are immediate relatives. There are an unlimited number of immigrant visas available for the spouses, parents, and underage children of U.S. citizens. You just have to prove up the family relationship and show that people are eligible to apply. If you're not an immediate relative, then you're going to be in a preference category and you're going to be waiting for a really long time. So we're going to talk about preference categories and the visa bulletin in just a little bit. All right. So generally, family-based petitions, you can get a green card that way. You can also get them through employment. So there's various categories in employment. The EB1 for people of extraordinary ability, EB2 for people of exceptional ability, master's degrees, professional workers, other workers are in the EB3 category, and then religious workers or investors. So in our office, we don't do any EB5. We do some religious workers. There's a big backlog on religious workers, and for most employment-based immigrant visas, there's a backlog. And also for most people that want to get a green card based on employment, the employer is going to have to go through the PERM process. So it's a really complicated, convoluted, not fun process whereby the employer has to figure out what the prevailing wage is. How much do I have to pay a computer programmer in Cook County, Illinois? That takes 6 or 7 months. Then they have to promise to pay that, and they post the job to see if there are any Americans that can do the job. The employer then has to be able to explain why there aren't any Americans who can do the job if anyone asks from the Department of Labor. And then once the Department of Labor is satisfied, then they certify the job, they issue the PERM, and then the employer files for an I-140 petition. Problem is there's a huge backlog, and there's a per country backlog for a lot of these categories. So for EB2, EB3, you're talking waits of anywhere from 2 to 4 to 10 or 11 or 12 years for people from India and China. So it's really ridiculous that we haven't updated our numbers or our processes since the 1990s. And the reason for that is because politicians can't get their act together and don't agree with how immigration should be handled. So that is the third and fourth way: family-based and employment-based. So those are the four main ways you get a green card in the United States. All right, so we talked about immediate relatives. So let's make it clear. So like I said, if you are the spouse, the underage child, or the parent of a U.S. citizen, then the only delay that you're going to experience is how long it takes USCIS to process the I-130, how long it's going to take the National Visa Center to finish processing the case, and then after that, how long the embassy is going to take to schedule you for an interview and then give you the visa, right? So that's for immediate relatives. For everybody else, there's a cap on the number of green cards that are available. Congress has limited the number of green cards available in each category. If certain categories aren't filled, then they can use ones from other categories, but generally these are all used and there's huge backlogs. So let's talk about the different preference categories. So the F1, F3, and F4 categories all relate to the relations of U.S. citizens. So the F1 category is for the unmarried children over 21 of U.S. citizens. The F3 category is for the married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, that is over 21. And then the F4 category is for the brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens. So again, this is one of the benefits of being a citizen is you can file these applications for your siblings or your overage children. Green card holders can't apply for their parents, and they can't apply for their brothers and sisters. And green card holders are in the F2A and F2B category. F2A is for the spouses and children of green card holders, and F2B is for the adult unmarried children of green card holders, right? So for all those categories, there are delays. Now, for a long time, for many years, the last 5 or 6 years, up until about a year ago, the spouses of green card holders and the underage children of green card holders went as fast as they did for U.S. citizens. But now there's this huge backlog. If you are a green card holder and you get married to someone overseas, you're looking at a 4-year wait. Probably you're going to become a U.S. citizen and notify USCIS that you've become a U.S. citizen. That's what's going to be the tipping point for your spouse to come to the United States. It's not that you finally waited long enough as the spouse of a green card holder, but rather that your spouse finally became a citizen and then you jump in priority because you go into a different visa category. So you got to check the visa bulletin every month. A lot of people in these comments will tell you that not every month do the dates even change. So there's a long way to go sometimes for some of these visa categories, a long way to go. So you got to educate yourself about what's the difference between an immediate relative and a non-immediate relative, and how does the visa bulletin work. We'll do a training sometime on the, I should have taken out the Northwest Islamic Center. Well, that's okay. That's where I was when I gave our talk last night. Immigrant intent. So we've talked a lot about immigrant intent. So the United States government makes a big distinction between people who have an immigrant intent and a non-immigrant intent. So non-immigrant visas, like I said, B1, B2 visit visas, F1, J1 student visas, E2 employment visas, H1Bs. Now, H1Bs are dual intent, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But generally, if you're coming on a non-immigrant visa, you're promising that you're going to go back home. You can't have secret immigrant intent. You can't say, I'm going to get my wife a student visa to come to the United States so that we can file for her green card as soon as she gets here. That is illegal, and it's improper immigrant intent. The purpose of a non-immigrant visa is to come and visit and then to leave, right? The immigrant intent issue comes up at the border. It comes up at the embassy. It comes up when you try to get a visa, right? So one big way this affects people is if someone's applied for an I-130 petition for them, and they've demonstrated immigrant intent by saying, I want to come live in the United States and get a green card, then most likely you're not going to get a visit visa. But even the simple act of marrying a U.S. citizen or being of a marrying age might mean that you can't convince the State Department that you don't have immigrant intent. And that might keep you from being able to get a non-immigrant visa to the United States. Or let's say you're here on a student visa, and then you get married and you apply for a green card, but then you go overseas and you want to get your F1 visa renewed. Most likely you won't, because you've demonstrated immigrant intent. So you really got to be careful, again, with your record when it comes to immigrant intent. Once you say, I want to get a green card, I want to get an immigrant visa, I want to plant my flag and live in the United States for the rest of my life. Once you do that, It's very unlikely you'll ever get a non-immigrant visa again. All right. Number 5. Okay, if your case is delayed, you sue. If you're going through unreasonable delays, 4 years, 5 years, 3 years, whatever, and you can't get any relief, then you have to sue them, right? And so here is sort of how lawsuits went when I started, right? So when I first started practicing immigration law in 2007, 2008, and I went around to the mosque, I would ask people, the Muslims, hey, you guys, what can I help you with when it comes to immigration? And they would say, Jim, we've been waiting for our citizenship for a really long time. So I started doing some research, and I found a lawsuit that the American Civil Liberties Union had filed in California on behalf of some Muslims who'd been waiting to get their citizenship for a long time. And I said, well, shit, I can do that. I can file a lawsuit like that. So I went around to all the mosques and I said, hey, who's been waiting for their citizenship for a really long time? And who's been waiting for their citizenship? And some people said, I've been waiting 2 years. I've been waiting 3 years. So I put 36 people into a lawsuit, and I charged them all $250 because I wasn't sure if it was going to work. And I thought 36 times $250. I thought that was a lot of money back then. So I said, Judge, you should make this as a class action and let me represent all the Muslims in the eastern half of Missouri who've been waiting for a really long time for their citizenship. Judge said no, but within 6 months, 34 of the 36 Muslims had gotten their citizenship. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And he said, well, I can't make it a class action. But I tried again. I filed for another 18, and then like 14 or 15 of them became citizens. So then I knew I was onto something. Number one, I knew that lawsuits worked for citizenship. And number two, I knew that I couldn't do them as class actions. I had to do them one at a time. This is why we do them one at a time. So then after that, this kid from Pakistan came to see me, and he said, Jim, I filed a lawsuit on my own without a lawyer against USCIS. And I've been trying to get my green card. I've been waiting 3 years. They won't give me a decision. Can you help me? And he lived in Illinois, but he filed his lawsuit in Missouri, which is where the immigration office was. He actually filed it in the right place. But the U.S. attorney was trying to play some tricks on him because he didn't have a lawyer, and they were threatening to file a motion to dismiss. That's when he hired me. And I said, dude, I'm so proud of you for filing this on your own. I will take over your case, and I will handle it for free. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work. So I took over the lawsuit. I entered my appearance. They scheduled him for an interview. I went to the interview, and he got his green card. So that was pretty great. So then I knew I could file lawsuits in Illinois and Missouri in federal court for green card delays. Then this guy from Michigan came to me and said, Jim, I've been waiting for 4 years for my asylum case. Can you help me? So I filed a lawsuit against the Chicago Asylum Office, and we had an 8-hour interview 4 days after Trump became president. And even after that, they said, we need to talk to him again. We had another 5-hour interview a couple of weeks later. My man got his green card. My man got his asylum, and then I knew I could file lawsuits for asylum. And then the last story was a lady here in St. Louis from Pakistan had been waiting for her husband to come for 2 years. I said, you should sue them. I'm not sure if it'll work, but I think it will. She said, I don't know. I'll go talk to my brother. And they went home and they decided not to do it. They came back a year later, same deal. They didn't do it again. So now it's been 3 years. After 4 years, they came back and I said, hey, I'm so sure that this is going to work that if you pay the filing fee, $400, then I'll file that lawsuit and you only have to pay me if he comes. And after waiting 4.5 years for her husband to come from Pakistan, he was standing in my office 90 days later. Standing in my office 90 days later. So then I knew I could file lawsuits for visas. So since that time, I've gotten admitted to probably 30 federal courts. We've got local counsel around the country, and we have filed 1,600 lawsuits, 1,600 lawsuits. It's one of the things that I'm very proud of. It's also one of the things that makes our immigration law firm different, is that we have filed these lawsuits in almost every federal court in the United States. And it's one of our favorite things to do because we get to take people who've been banging their head on the wall. They've been sending letters to the ombudsman. They've been asking their U.S. senator to help. They've been calling the 1-800 number. They've been chatting with that stupid fool, Emma. They've been doing all those things. They can't get any relief. They call us. They call hacking. We file a lawsuit. Their case gets moving. It's something I'm really, really proud of. Number 6, many of our watchers and viewers and listeners are Muslim. There really is a secret program to slow down immigration to the United States by Muslims. It's called the Controlled Application Review and Resolution Program. It started under President Bush, George W., back in 2008, right at the end of his presidency. Obama kept it in place. Trump kept it in place. Biden kept it in place. It was a secret program that the ACLU found out about in a lawsuit. And it basically says, If we slow down a Muslim man's ability to get his citizenship, then that's going to slow down his ability to sponsor his wife. And that means she's going to get here later. And that means she'll get her citizenship later. And then that means that she's going to be delayed in applying for her parents. And it's a net positive for the United States because we get to slow down these Muslims from coming to the United States. That's a real thing. That's not me making it up. That's a real thing. Seventh thing you need to understand, criminal charges affect immigrants differently than U.S. citizens. Criminal charges affect immigrants differently than U.S. citizens. As I mentioned, there's a lot of people walking around here. They may or not be in status. If they have status, they might not be U.S. citizens. If they commit a crime, that crime can have serious consequences for them. They might not get in any criminal trouble. The judge might give them a suspended sentence or suspended execution of sentence or suspended imposition of sentence under state law. But the thing you have to understand is that we have 50 states, and each state writes their laws differently. And the laws don't always match between the states and the federal government. USCIS is federal. The Immigration and Nationality Act is federal. So you just need to understand that if you get a suspended sentence, if you get probation, immigration generally considers those to still be convictions for purposes of deportation. They still consider those convictions, even if it got expunged, even if it went away. That doesn't mean anything to USCIS. And one of the ways that people really get in trouble, even green card holders, they say, well, yeah, I might have committed a crime, but I have a green card. So I'm going to go over to Dominican Republic and party for the Christmas holiday. Well, when you come back, there's a sneaky, evil law that President Bill Clinton signed in 1996 that basically says, if you have a green card and you leave the United States and you had a crime before you came, we can treat you as an arriving alien and strip you of your green card when you come back and make it really easy for the government to deport you. It was a terrible, terrible thing. It's ruined so many families. And it's all because of old Slick Willie, the former governor of Arkansas, the man who lost his law license for lying and perjuring himself after having an affair with a White House intern. So that son of a bitch brought us the ADPA and IRA, which brought us that very harsh rule and a lot of other harsh immigration rules. So if you are an immigrant and you get into criminal trouble, which we call crimmigration, you have to understand you're not the same as U.S. citizens. I mentioned the difference between federal and state, and you also have to make sure that you call your immigration lawyer first. You don't call the criminal defense lawyer. Criminal defense lawyers sometimes don't know that you're an immigrant. Sometimes they don't understand the importance of you being an immigrant. And you'd be surprised how often criminal defense attorneys call me up and they say, hey, Jim, after lunch, I'm going to go in and plead out Jose to this crime. Do you think that's okay? And I'm like, are you serious? Whenever I had to figure out if a crime is going to render someone deportable, it's really complicated. It's the hardest legal work that we do. It's really, really complicated. But basically, you have to look at the federal statute, look at the state statute, and say, does the state statute make them subject to deportation? And only a lawyer can do that. And they sure as hell can't do it as the criminal defense lawyers walking into court. So always talk to your immigration lawyer first. And if you have a crime, we've had a lot of good success either working with the criminal defense attorney and the prosecutor to try to plead the person out to something that doesn't make them deportable. We've even gone back and tried to undo convictions that rendered somebody deportable so that we could get them to plead guilty to something less that would make them not deportable. Number 8, you don't see it so much on this show, but you see it all times on social media. Why don't these stinking immigrants just get in line? Why don't they just pay a fine? Why don't they just fill out that form and get their citizenship? Most Americans have no idea how complex the immigration laws are, how there really is no path for people who are here in that status I mentioned of being undocumented or having entered without inspection. For a lot of people, there's no way to get status, or it's too risky to try and get status because it's too uncertain. And the consequence, if you don't get the benefit that you're going after, is to be deported, right? So for many immigrants, there's no line to get in, no fine to pay, no form to complete. You guys have heard me. I've talked about this many times. Changing from a non-immigrant visa, like a student visa or a visit visa, to some other non-immigrant visa, then you doing that within the United States is very, very difficult. It used to take 2 or 3 months. Now it takes 16, 14 months. And a lot of times they just sort of play with you and screw with you. So it's very unlikely that you have the ability to pull this off. Sandy's asked me if I have a favorite president. Well, I certainly like Abraham Lincoln, and I read Team of Rivals and I think about all that he did during the Civil War and how he brought the country back together, well, through his death, but also in upholding the Union, was pretty amazing. I thought Harry Truman was generally a good president, but there's obviously consequences of him dropping those bombs in Japan. But Harry Truman is someone, Teddy Roosevelt, someone, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Those are the ones who I think about the most. So that's pretty good. All right. Number 10. You guys know this. We talk about it all the time. You don't need to hear it from me. USCIS is broken seriously. They have longer processing times. It used to take me 2 months to get a fiance here, 3 months to get a fiance here. Now it takes 2 years. Shortly after Trump took office, USCIS used that opportunity to do away with InfoPass. Believe it or not, people, you used to be able to get on the USCIS website, your very self. You didn't need a lawyer or anybody else. You could make something called InfoPass, and you would put in your A number, you would put in the case type, and you would make an appointment for the next day or the same day at USCIS, and you could go down and talk to a live person who actually looked at you, who actually breathed, who actually looked up your file. This wasn't that long ago. This was 6 years ago. The InfoPass needs to be brought back, but these assholes that are running USCIS have no interest in making life better for immigrants. They just want you to talk to this stupid bot called Emma. Number 11, USCIS and the State Department are not trying to help you. Too many people come on this show or talk to me after the fact, and they say, Jim, I just thought that if I asked USCIS, they would tell me what to do. Or if I just filled out this form and I made a mistake, they would just let me know. That's not how it is. They're out to get you. They're out to get you, right? They're not looking to make your life easier. So that is the 11th thing that you need to understand about immigration. Yes, AJ, there's no one at USCIS taking any responsibility. These field office directors, nobody's scrutinizing them. Nobody's asking, when are you making cases go faster? Joe Biden has never, throughout his political career, cared about immigration, and he just turned all the keys to immigration over to the same old hacks that were there under the deporter-in-chief, Barack Obama, Alejandro Mayorkas, and that Munoz lady. Why don't they want to help? And Amani made a great point last night. You guys paid for these applications. You didn't say how much it had to cost. The government said how much it had to cost. They said, we are a fee-based system. This money that you're spending is so that our officers will do their fucking jobs. You are paying for something that you're not getting, right? So if they don't have enough money to do their job properly, that's their fault. They're the ones that set the fees. And so they're not operating for the most part on tax money. They're operating on money that they generate in taking your fees. And so there was this really weird thing that went on during COVID where they said, well, we got behind and we don't have enough money to process all these cases. That's bullshit. That's your fault, and that's bullshit, right? Yeah, Union says it's not paranoia if someone's actually out to get you. Boy, I say that all the time. All right, I'm going to go through the rest of these slides real quick. We got some bonus resources. You guys know about most of these. We got the YouTube channel. We're up to about 14 million views. We've had the 1,600 lawsuits. So if you're experiencing a delay and you need our help, send us an email, info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. We're always looking for opportunities to sue them. We have the Facebook group. We're almost at 11,000. You might be watching in the Facebook group. Most people are on YouTube, but make sure you join Immigrant Home. And then we have this show, which you guys all know about and participate in all the time. So thanks for all being here. If you need these slides, just send an email, info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com, and we'll get them out to you over the weekend. Info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. Just say, hey, I want those slides. Just put in the memo line, and we'll get them over to you. All right. Actually, you know what? Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the slides. How do I do that? There we go. And here I am. We've got 15 minutes left. I'm going to try to get to a couple questions. Now, we'll be back tomorrow. For episode 495. Yeah, let me know if you like that. I haven't done, H&M, if you have my personal email. H&M info@ is my personal email. No, H&M knows I have a different email. You can email me wherever. I'll send it to you. I'm going to do a show tomorrow. I'll do an hour-long show tomorrow, probably around 11 or 12. Yeah, 11 or 12. So text the word show. Look at that. Isn't she clever? Text the word show to 314-470-3300. And we will tomorrow text out when we're going to go live next. All right. Let's see. KG is here. Hello, KG.
Hi, Mr. Hacking.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Can't hear you. Can you guys hear him? No? Huli? You can hear
Can
him,
you hear
Huli?
me? I'm unmuted.
Oh, hold on. Go ahead, say something.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I had you on mute. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. So I have a question regarding my criminal record. So I got this case expunged, uh, but I have to apply for extension and
Of
eventually the stamping. So would that be a problem? That's what I want to know. Uh,
what was the crime?
the initial summon was eluding charge, and that's a third degree. And when the case went to the court, it was a degree D charge.
A what? A what charge?
Degree D. It's in state of New Jersey.
Spell it for me.
I think that degree D means like level 4.
Oh, degree D. But what was the charge? The degree D is just
Charge,
the seriousness of the
the
crime.
charge
What's the
eluding,
is it
eluding,
looting?
elude,
L-O
eluding an officer.
looting an officer. Okay.
Yeah.
So you
So,
were did the charge get reduced?
yes, the initial was third degree, but it got reduced to degree D when the case was heard.
Mhm.
And I got an expungement letter.
Okay, I don't care. I don't care about the expungement. I always tell immigrants don't get it expunged. It just makes things harder to prove up later. So, are you on an H-1B, on an F-1? What are you on?
H-1B.
And have you received any kind of notice from the government, the embassy, that your visa's been revoked?
No.
What embassy will you be going back to get your visa stamp?
India.
So so your question to me is this going to affect your ability to change your status? Like to what? What do you want to change your status to?
So I'll be like, I just got my visa extended, like it is still under process. And once I get it extended, like I would need to go for stamping. And I've heard like when you go for stamping the visa at the embassy, they ask you questions regarding the any charges, any criminal. They run a background check on you, and they want to know what exactly happened.
So I'll say it like this. If you get an H-1B extension and you go back to India to get a stamp, I think the chances of you actually being able to come back to the United States are less than 50%.
And is there a way to like improve this?
No, because remember, H-1B visas, F-1 visas, all those kinds of no one has a right to those visas, and the embassy, especially the embassy in India, of more than any other embassy I can think of, takes crimes very seriously. And I think they just basically said, look, brother, we got thousands of people who want to come to the United States on an H-1B, and they all promised to follow the rules. You didn't follow the rules. So we're not going to let you go back. I think it's like a 20% chance you get the visa stamped if you go, even though it was expunged, even though it went down to degree D. They just have to. I mean, at the very least, they're going to put you in administrative processing for 6 months. So what happens if they put you in administrative processing for 6 months? Do you lose your job?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it's really hard, especially for people from India, but I mean, one thing is the government is talking about stateside visa stamping, right? So that pilot program is supposed to go into effect. If that does, you're going to be a lot better off going that route than trying to go back home.
Right.
Now, they might bake in some kind of a check to see here in the States and then just not give you the extension or not give you the stamp. That might happen. Nobody knows because this program is like brand new. But I think going overseas to try to get a stamp would be really, really dumb.
Okay. And like in terms of like filing any relief, like this is it, like, or do I have any recourse?
What relief are you thinking about? No, there's no relief.
It was dismissed, but the records would still stay and it would always be on my record.
Yes.
And
And
there,
did you? I don't know if you heard my presentation, but the federal government and USCIS and the State Department, they don't care that New Jersey lets you plead to a lower crime and that you got it expunged. They don't care about that. In their mind, if you pled guilty with a suspended
I
sentence,
not plead guilty.
it got dismissed.
Yes.
It got straight dismissed.
Yes.
Then why did you say it got amended to degree D?
No, like the way it is, like they gave me a summon, and the summon was county level court, but it was automatically given back to the township, to the
Okay.
municipal court, and it was downgraded automatically.
Okay, but you keep saying downgraded, not dismissed. So
What happened? Like the case, they gave me a summon for the county court,
yeah.
like the superior court. But on that particular day, my lawyer informed me, like, your case is going to the municipal court. You don't need to appear, because they did not consider this like a case that is fit for the superior court. This could be handled at the municipal level. So they sent it back to the township.
Did you pay a fine?
Yes.
Yeah. So you got convicted. That's a conviction. It's a municipal conviction.
No, I paid fine for the tickets. Like there were multiple tickets that the officer wrote me. So I paid some of those, like he wrote me multiple. So my lawyer spoke to the prosecutor, and he like did a like deal wherein I would not be charged with any criminal charge. That would be dismissed, and instead I have to go for a driver license suspension for 2 months, and I have to pay 2 tickets.
What, did your lawyer know that you were an immigrant?
Yes, but I don't think like I hired the best lawyer.
Okay, so I mean, it's hard for me to talk in theory. This all sounds better to me than it sounded before. But still, at the end of the day, if you're asking me, Jim, should I go to India? I would say hell no, because this if you're having this conversation with them, you're already in trouble.
Right.
So I would say sit tight, see what happens with stateside visa stamping, and wait for that before you try to go back overseas, even if you get the extension. I don't think you have a problem with the extension. You could get a green card eventually with all this. It's just the leaving that's the problem. Okay. But if you're saying that I got charged with eluding and speeding and reckless driving,
yes,
and eluding went away, and I pled guilty to speeding and reckless driving, if that's what you're saying, I mean, to me, that's pretty good. But I would just wait to see what happens.
Okay, understood. Makes sense.
Thanks, KG. See you, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So Mario is here. Hello, Mario.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for the 2-hour show. We're learning a lot from your shows.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. I have a friend. Just want to ask that he have dual nationality from British and Pakistan. So he was divorced in UK, and now planning to go to US on ESTA for marriage.
Wait, stop. Woo! Nobody comes to the United States on ESTA for marriage. Don't ever say that again.
Right. Okay. So he is going to visiting his girlfriend. And then what we learned from you that 60 days rules is there, and they can't do anything on 60 days. And after that, they can marry if they want, and then can apply adjustment of status. I don't know how to phrase it, but that's what can do.
We're going to talk hypothetically. So let's say there's this guy who comes on ESTA, and while he's here on ESTA, he decides to visit America. He hangs out for a while, and after a good long while, more than 60 days, he decides to get married.
Yeah.
If he makes that decision in the United States and wasn't 100% sure when he got on that plane that he was going to get married, he might see this lady and say, oh shit, on day 58, like, I don't want to ever see this lady again. That could happen. She might have gross toenails and like snore and like, hit him in his sleep. Right. So he might, as long as he's not 100% sure that he's going to stay and he comes on ESTA and then he decides to stay and get married, that's sort of okay. But All that other stuff you said, I almost jumped out of my seat.
Okay, yeah, got it. Okay, so then from 65th day, okay, this happened. So he's allowed to stay 90 days. So when they will apply that, obviously that, like you said, it's gonna take 12, 18 months. So will it class as overstay, or because they're doing within the 90 days window, so it will not be overstay on ESTA?
So if they get married on day 70, and if they apply before day 90, then he would go from being a visa waiver program person to an adjustment of status applicant, and he could stay as long as the green card takes. Now,
Okay.
that being said, we've had cases where people came on ESTA for 90 days, waited 2 years, then got married to a U.S. citizen and applied late. They got their green cards too. Now, no one should plan on that. No one should bank on that, but that is something that actually happens, right? So the one thing that you need to keep in mind, and I need to make a video on this, there is one big problem with ESTA. So think of it this way. ESTA is really the visa waiver program, right? And visa waiver program, what that means is that they're not making people go ahead and get a visa, right? They're not making them get inspected, by a consular official to file the DS-160. They're getting some benefits by just because they're from Sweden or because they're from England, they can just hop on a plane and come to America without going through all that. The trade-off for that is if you come to the United States on ESTA, they can put you in expedited removal, which means they can deport you without seeing a judge. If you have a visa, you're supposed to see the judge before they deport you. So you have a little bit less protection when you come on ESTA than when you come on a visa. All that being said, every time we've ever filed for adjustment for somebody who came on ESTA and ended up marrying a U.S. citizen, every case we've ever filed, to my knowledge, has been approved. So those are all the things.
Okay. So what about the dual nationality? So he's UK national living in UK for 20 years, and he's have Pakistani nationality as well. So he have to declare that as well. Then he will have 3 nationalities in future. America allow that 3 nationalities, or he have to surrender one?
America doesn't recognize any dual. Well, they do with Israel and maybe a couple other countries, but when you become a U.S. citizen, you give up your allegiance to your other countries.
So even UK one.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to surrender.
That being said, most people keep both passports. I'm not saying that they should, but I'm saying most people keep both passports. So like my wife.
When they will do, sorry, go.
No. So I know people who, got their citizenship years and years ago, but they travel on both passports. When they enter their old country, they use their their foreign passport. And when they come back to the United States, they use their American passport. But yeah, you take that oath of allegiance as far as right. Okay.
So when they will do I-30, so he just mentioned his British, or he have to mention the Pakistani as well?
Of course, brother. Of course, brother. Yeah.
You have to mention both.
Always.
Okay. Okay. And the same, he was divorced in Pakistan as well, have the divorce paper, and the UK divorce paper as well. So again, he have to mention that he was married twice, and he have to submit both divorce paper. Because what confusing that he is entering as a British national. So he only show the British one, or he show the both ones?
It's so funny that you keep saying he has to. That I view it a different way. Just answer the questions. If they say, what country are you national of? You list the countries you're national of. If they say, what country passports do you have? You list those. If they say, how many times in your life have you been married? You say 3 or 2. And next time 3. How many times have you been divorced? 2. They don't. People come up with all these weird distinctions. Well, he's coming from England, so I don't have to tell him about that shit back in Pakistan. That's weird thinking that people who don't have a lawyer think of. That's not how USCIS thinks about it. So more than anything, just answer the question and tell the truth. That's it.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, that's all. Thank you very much for that. Thanks.
Bye, buddy.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Got time for 1 or 2 more. Hi, Kevin. You're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
I got you.
Hey, so I'm a newbie to your channel. My name is Danielle. My husband is Kevin.
didn't think you looked like it, Kevin, but I don't ask.
You're funny. Okay, really quick. So I'm a U.S. citizen. My husband is a newly permanent resident from Jamaica.
Nice.
He is still within his 2-year conditional. We know that once we get through that, we can then apply for his U.S. citizenship. My question is, my mother-in-law is visiting from Jamaica currently, and she's elderly, and she's having some health issues. How would we be able to file for sponsorship for her, or even?
Can't until he becomes a citizen.
Okay, so would another blood relative, like her brother, who is a U.S. citizen, be able to file for her?
He can file for her, but a visa won't be available for about 15 years. She can't stay while it's waiting.
Are you serious?
Mhm.
Why so long? 15 years?
Yeah, go back and watch the presentation I did this hour, and I talk about the visa categories. But basically, Congress hasn't increased the number of brother and sister visas since the early 90s, and so there's thousands and thousands of people in line ahead of your husband's mom. But once he becomes a citizen, then she's an immediate relative, and there's an unlimited number of those.
Oh, wow.
So, like, you sponsor him for a green card, spouses, children under 21, and parents of U.S. citizens, there's an unlimited number of visas available for them. So that's why he got to stay, and he could do it all and put it back. But for everybody else, there's a backlog for like the brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens. It's 16, 18, 20 years.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I called in and asked you this, because she's been here visiting for 5 months. So it would be essential for her to go back home now, so she doesn't mess up her visa from her home country. Is that right?
Yeah, she wants to be able to come back. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. You just saved me thousands of dollars from.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, he, as a green card holder, he can't apply for her. You can't apply for her as his spouse. It's only when he gets his citizenship that he can apply for her.
Okay. That makes absolute sense.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Have a good day. All right. That'll do it, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. The show will be either at 11 or 12 or question PM, as Yuli says. That was a 2-hour show, 2 hours and 2 minutes. So take that, haters and suckers. We'll be back tomorrow. I see Matt in there. Matt, just email me, man. You got my email. Just email me. Everybody else, have a great weekend. If I don't see you, we'll have a show tomorrow. That'll be 495. I technically might do a show on Sunday. I definitely do one tomorrow. I might do one on Sunday, even though I need a break and I'm tired. I might do one on Sunday because I'm traveling and I might have some time to kill at the airport. Might not be a full hour, but that might be cheating. And but I might have some time to kill at the airport because I like to get to the airport early because I get anxious about my flights. And because I got these long days on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a show. Anybody, let me know. Does anybody think if I did a show at 7 in the morning, if I did a show at 7, not Yuli, you don't have to come. If I did a show at 7 in the morning, would you guys watch, or should I do it like, say, 7 at night? I might mix it up. I might do one 7 a.m. show just to see what happens, maybe on Tuesday, just for fun. Because I think there's this little sliver of people that can never get to us because we're in that, like, that's when they're asleep at 7, or that's when they're awake at 7. So like in Australia or the Maldives or Nepal or something. But the other thing I want to start thinking about, and maybe we should start keeping track. When people call the show, what country are they from? What country do you guys think we're getting the most people from? Seems like we're getting a lot from Jamaica these days. A lot from Jamaica, right? So Jamaica, always Nigeria, of course, Pakistan, a lot of Pakistan. I'm interested to see what countries we get the most of around here. Tony says I won't make the 7 a.m. show. Eldit says I'll watch it in the afternoon. Yeah, I think I'll probably just do it at night because I'll be down in Orlando. We might go see a movie or do something fun one night. I don't know, but I'll make it work. We'll get it to. And of course, I said I might cheat and count a couple of Friday's 5-hour shows as 1-hour shows. We'll see. But this was episode 494. My name is Jim Hacking. I'm an immigration lawyer. Yeah, we can do a poll. I think we can do a poll in YouTube. If we did a show at 7, would you guys come? I'll talk about it tomorrow too. I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you all for all of your support and love of the show. It was fun doing 2 shows back to back. I feel, thanks Albert, thanks for coming. I feel good. Like, I think I could go 3 more hours. I think I'm ready for next Friday. I'll have to do some training on the treadmill this week, lift some weights, do some stretches. And we're going to have those cool guests. So it'll be fun. Oh, we got a good one for you. We're going to have a contest. We're going to have a contest next Friday. We're going to have a prize. So we're going to have a hacking immigration law box of bling and a consult with me for free off camera. We're going to give out a clue every hour next Friday. You got to be here and you got to get all 5 clues in order to figure out what the clue is about. And then we'll give a prize at the end. And so that you gotta watch all 5 hours of the show in order to get the figure it out. Although I think if we pick the clue that we're thinking, some people will get it after probably 2 or 3. Daisy, we do take in turns, especially. I think I need someone to help me with my TikTok messages. I'm getting lots of TikTok messages. So I'm always open to interns working online. And I know you guys love the show and love what we do here. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. This was fun. I can't wait till next Friday. That's going to be a lot of fun. Have a good night.